Hey, welcome to another episode of the Prospects Corner brought to you by the Traveling Hoopers. I am your host, Alan Pettigrew Jr. Before we get into all of the fun action, go ahead and like, subscribe, and follow us here for all recruiting update information. Now let's go ahead and get into it. This week we're talking about the Fantastic 40 brought to us by Dinos in the Circuit. Our first guys up is going to be the Texas Circuit All-Stars. And one of the guys that I was really impressed with this week is going to be Rylan Griffin. Rylan Griffin is a long, athletic 6'5" shooting guard coming out of Dallas, Texas. And when I tell you he has 3-level scoring with pure shot creation, and because of his athleticism, he has great elevation on all of his finishes at the rim. You can tell that by a lot of the posters he's made this season. But specifically in Vegas, he was just able to make his shots look so easy. The way he creates shots is just kind of really hard for anybody to stay in front of. Like one of the moves in particular that I'm going to show you, it's just like a pro level move. Like Griffin's going to be a really good scorer at that college level and definitely going to have looks for pro opportunities once he's done with his program. Our next guy up from that team is going to be Alex Anamekwe, and when I tell you he is a bruising 6'5" forward who's like hyper athletic. He finished with an alley-oop in each of the games I watched, and when we're just talking about physical measurements and the way he plays the game and his motor, there's not a lot of guys in this class that are going to be able to match up with him physically. In fact, he was able to beat Tyler Andrews, another guy we're going to talk about later on this list, who is physically imposing himself, who's standing 6'6" and like 215 pounds, all muscle. And Alex was able to block him out the rim. His above the rim finishes are crazy. He's one of those hyper athletic competitive kids that every team needs and is going to be a difference maker. And staying on trend with our long athletic forwards, we have Sean Jones, a guy out of Houston, Texas. And when I tell you he is going to be able to produce at the next level without having plays called for him, he's going to do it consistently. We're talking about another hyper athletic long guy who can play the forward on the wing, or he can play with you on the post at 6'7". He made a lot of defensive plays that turned into offensive plays. He's going to get out in transition. He's going to hit threes. And most important, he has a whole nother side of his game that he hasn't really got to show that much on the AAU circuit because of the teams he's played with. When he goes back to his Shadow Creek team, look out for this guy. Lee Dort starts us off with our first guy who was committed, and he's going to be going to Vanderbilt when his senior year is up. And Lee Dort has just looked overall more athletic in this game, and especially these last few months. I'm talking about a guy who's consistently finishing at the rim. He's 6'10", he's super muscular. Most important, he's a rebounding machine. I'm talking about offensive, defensive. He's going to be able to get both of those and make it look good. He averaged double-digit rebounds throughout the entire game. In one of his best games, he only had 6 points, but he had 15 rebounds. He's a consistent rebounding guy. He's going to have the effort. Most importantly, he's going to be a big-time rim protector. In one game alone, he had about 4 blocks and about 5 offensive rebounds. Let's move on to Lee Dort's future and current teammate at Green Hill School, Noah Shelby, who absolutely shot the cover off the ball. We're talking about one of the most consistent, deep level scoring threats we have in all of Texas, and he made that known in Vegas. We're talking about a guy who's going to hit pull-up threes, catch and shoot, and it's all from super deep. I'm talking about several feet behind the college three-point line already, and as he adds strength and just becomes a better overall point guard, it's going to be really scary for the rest of the SEC. The Texas All-Star Circuit team also had a very underrated prospect out of Oklahoma. His name is Dillon. We're talking about a long 6'9" guy who has a lot to still cover up. He's still a little uncoordinated, but that does not stop him from being a productive, lanky post player. We're talking about somebody who can make hook shots out of the post. We're also talking about someone who rebounds, and because of his length and timing, he's a solid shot blocker as well. Last but not least, we have our guy, top 5 of the class, Keyonte George, the recent Baylor commit. When I tell you we're looking at an elite scoring machine, like he has the complete package. We're talking about 3-level scoring and he is one of the best downhill transition scorers in the entire class. When we're talking about somebody who can take contact and keep going, that is Keyonte George. When we're saying someone at the rim or finishing above the rim, he will punch it home every single time. He's a special guy who's going to the Big 12, and he is a consistent 20-point per game scorer. In one particular game, he shot 7 of 16 for 21 points, and it's really efficient. He also knows how to get to the line, and a lot of his attempts at the line are from fouls on jumpers, so he's able to draw people in there as well. Next up, we have the Belmont Shores team. Give me a second to really tell you how good of a roster Belmont Shores put together for this event. We're talking about between 6'6" and 6'8", about 6 guys who can really produce. On top of that, they have a lot of good scorers in that unit. The versatility on this roster was really refreshing to see after such a long AAU season, and then me taking a break from this as well, and then coming back to seeing this was just eye-opening. I really appreciate what they put on the floor. And the guy who stood out to me the most on that team is going to be Aiden Shaw. And this is my first time seeing the guy out of Kansas, but he is 6'8" with an incredible frame and almost disrespectful athleticism. We're looking at a guy that can really handle the ball in transition. He can shoot the ball well. We're talking about 2 of 3 from 3 in the first half alone. He continues to shoot the ball better in the second half, finishing 3 or 4 in one particular game, giving him 15 points and 5 rebounds. He'll finish his senior year at Link Year Prep and expect a national schedule out of what they're building in Branson, Missouri. Our next guy up is Tyler Andrews, and I told you we'd get back to him. He's a physically imposing wing who's going to reclass to 2022, and the fact that he slipped out of the 2021 class without getting picked up is either a testament to how good 2021 is or how low-key of a senior year he had to have, because this guy has a Division I body for sure. He can score inside and out. He's also a good defensive tool, and most importantly, he is going to stuff your stat sheet. He finished the game with 13 points, 4 assists, and 4 rebounds. And as I was just saying about the versatility that this team has, we have guys like Josh Jefferson, who's listed as 6'8", and going to Liberty High School, which another one of his teammates is also on this team. I honestly feel bad for people who are going to have to play this team specifically during the high school season, because it's going to be really hard for you to match up with both of the guys here. But Josh Jefferson does everything at his size, and I'm talking about several first half dunks, pull-up jump shots, playing really good defense on one of the best scorers in the country in Keyonte George, and just consistent. He finished with a 11.11 rebound double-double, and I think we're just seeing the surface of how productive this guy can be. And let's talk about Josh Jefferson's teammate, Aaron Brice. Guys, we are looking at a super athletic 6'7" power forward. I'm talking about the coordination and athleticism to extend over the 6'9", mediate the lane, who is a really good rim protector, and he did it with ease. We're also looking at a high academic guy who has a 4.4 GPA. He's a good student, and he's a better athlete on the floor. And getting into another athletic forward is Jorge Ochoa. Ochoa is one of the better Swiss Army knife players in the entire event. We're talking about a guy that can finish above the rim, hit mid-range shots, and has range out to 3. On defense, he gives you a very versatile 6'7", 6'8" guy who can not only match up with Lee Dort's strength, but also move with the wings and guards that played for the Texas circuit team. When you have that type of package of a guy who can do just about anything, he's going to bring value at the next level. Last but not least for Belmont Shores is my guy, Trey Pettigrew. And I'm not just saying my guy because we have the same last name. He showed me so much on his offensive package that I am impressed and ready to see what he does in his senior year at high school. He is an incredible scorer, and most importantly, his confidence is sky high. I saw him miss the first 5 shots of the game, and to me, I was ready to say pack it up and just be a point guard. But he finished the game 9 of 16 with 25 points because he kept going after it. He fills it up from all 3 levels. He's athletic. What he is in transition is a tad bit scary at 6'3". He's super fast. He clearly has the athleticism to get above the rim. But it's the jumper and the floaters that make him so dangerous in the half court. He's not afraid to let it fly, and it's going to hit the bottom of the net at some point. And when it does, let's just say when it rains, it pours for Mr. Pettigrew. Next team up is going to be Each One Teach One, and as a guy who recently moved back to Florida, can I tell you this is one of the better programs in the state and has been for many years. And this year is no different. We're looking at a really stacked team who can just throw guy after guy after guy at you. And it's going to be really hard for you to recover when any of them are finished with you. Our first guy who was absolutely wreaking havoc as an offensive player is going to be Brice Sensabaugh, a big 6'6" forward who just knows how to fill the cup up any way possible. He's another one of our 3-level scorers who's going to be able to kill you from any spot beyond the 3-point line. He's also got a nice mid-range pull-up, and as a driver, he's going to finish through you. He absorbs contact, and when he gets to the rim, it's an easy finish, it's nice touch, it's all of what you would expect from a guy who can really fill up the cup. He can push the ball in transition and rebound well for his position. Each One Teach One runs 2 point guards, one being Fabio Basili, the other Bruce Thornton. Together, one of the scarier playmaking duos I've seen this AAU season. Our first guy up is going to be Bruce Thornton. Our next guy up is going to be Bruce Thornton, someone who's recently named a 5-star recruit. And he is one of the better floor generals I've seen this entire summer. He's smooth, he's controlled, he controls the team, the flow of the game, all of that. And on top of that, because of his body being so solid, he also makes for a really good defender. Now let's talk about Fabio Basili, who I think is one of the better playmakers out of the state. He's really quick. He has a shifty handle. He's consistently getting into the rim. On top of that, he's a good passer. So once the defenses collapse, he can find everybody. But his speed allows him to get to the cup. He has a decent shot from 3. And when we're just talking about an overall guy who's going to be able to mix things up and gives you a fast-paced player who's going to change how your team plays, Basili brings all of that and is going to be a big pace changer at the next level. Another guy that really impressed me on my first watch is Dillon Mitchell. We're talking about a super big 6'8" forward who is an electric athlete. Seeing Mitchell in the half court or seeing him in transition is a thing of beauty. He is a showtime athlete. We're talking about someone who has full extension, great bounce, and just a really fun thing to mold. He's currently going to Amboree Academy to finish out his senior year, and I can't wait to see what all of that looks like for such an athletic wing. And finishing up our Each One Teach One team is going to be Josiah Sabino and Stephon Payne III. Excuse me if I'm pronouncing your name wrong, Stephen. But we're talking about 2 guys that had really solid showings. Josiah Sabino really got out there in transition, while Stephon really did his thing as an offensive rebounder and finisher. It was like a really consistent thing. He had about 3 of those in a row during one of their games. And he also pencils in as a solid shot blocker at 6'9". Our next team up is going to be the always scrappy and ready to go against anyone Dallas Showtime team that played on the Under Armour circuit. The 2 guys I really want to talk about are Arterio Morris, who really showed that when he is hitting jump shots, he's one of the best players in the entire country. He's nearly unstoppable because of his athleticism. But when he can really get into a shot like he did today, where he shot 2 of 4, there's not a lot that most guys can do when his jump shot is on. Our next guy up is going to be Robert Jennings. He doesn't normally play with Dallas Showtime, but when we're talking about a physical 6'8" forward who can really do a lot of things on the court, this is your guy. And on top of that, Robert looked really big. He was clogging up the lane. His shoulders are wide and powerful. This is another guy that we're going to have some fun with out in Texas as he takes Taka Storm on a deep state tournament run once again. Our next team up is not only a superstar in the independent circle, but they're one of the closest teams that also won the championship at Fantastic 40. And in their win, there was a lot of emotion because these guys have been together since 5th grade. And there's a lot of talent on this roster. We have names like Anthony Black, Ryan Argawal, and of course, my guy Camron Amboree, who's going to be the first person we talk about because he was absolutely dominant as a shooter this weekend. Anytime he wanted to get his shot off behind the three-point line, he was going to do it and it was going to go in. We're talking about 4 to 5 made threes in every single game he played in. Because he's so quick and he has a really good handle, he's going to create the space he needs to get his shot off, and it's consistent. An underrated part of his game is how quick his hands are. It caused a few deflections in the couple games that I watched, but most importantly, his dribble drive game is really impressive. He was able to take Ven-Allen Lubin off the dribble, who's been a spectacular athletic guy this entire summer. And the fact that he can do that, coupled with his shooting, Amboree is one of those guys in the 2022 class. As he continues to go underrated, he is going to be one of those guys that coaches who know basketball are going to fall in love with and have a superstar on their hands. The first team to offer him was Oral Roberts, and he saw what Oral Roberts was able to do in the tournament this year with such an elite score. If they can pull it off again, which I doubt it because of how good he is, some mid-major or high majors want to steal this kid up, want to make some people scratch their head until he gets on the floor where they look at the tape and he proves and shows just how good of a player he can be at the next level. Our next guy up is going to be Anthony Black, who's been one of the biggest risers over the past year and a half. He's even touched 5-star status. And when you see him play, it's obvious why. He's an athletic 6'7" former wide receiver who also had Division I offers. And he brings that toughness to the basketball court where he's a willing defender on several different positions. And he sees the court so well. He can find passes in the half court, but what he does as a passer on the fast break is absolutely incredible. He can find guys way before plays develop, and I appreciate everything that he brings there. He's a solid shooter. He can really get to the rim, and when we're talking about a slasher, Anthony Black is going to be your guy. And because he has all those tools, he's long, athletic. Whatever he wants to be on the defensive end, he can be it. If he wants to stop you at the rim, he can do it. If he wants to lock you up on the perimeter, he can do it. I just love the package that this guy has, and being able to watch him develop with my time in Texas has been a delight. And the fact that he is now a national star, brilliant. Our next guy up for 3D Empire is going to be Ryan Argawal, one of the elite snipers of the class. And we're talking about a guy who's already 6'7" and has a great feel for the game. He's a solid rebounder for the position. He can really pass. And one play in particular that I want to post on the screen, he takes the ball, he drives, and because he's such a threat shooting, he goes up for the attempt, but knows he has a man on the block, passes it to him, instant assist. So things like that just really show, besides being a guy who can shoot the ball beyond the NBA 3, is going to be someone who's going to be a solid playmaker at the next level. Another guy who has championed him so much is Kellen Buffington. He's even said that he has potential to be an NBA player, and I second that. I actually have notes dating back from 2020 during the pandemic where I was like, he could be one of those guys who makes it because of his length, his ability to shoot, and the fact that he's solid at just about everything else that the game asks him to be. He's even turned into a solid shot blocker because of his size and length. When you're around the rim, he can contest, he gets there early. And the fact that he can just do all of this stuff, he's going to have an incredible year at Stanford. I can't wait to see what those shooting numbers look like as he just gets into a more open floor and really gets to shoot the ball the way that a team that wants to be elite and really move forward in the Pac-12 tournament or even the NCAA tournament, they're going to need that, and he offers that all day long. Terrance Ramirez is another guy that stood out for 3D Empire. He recently committed to UTA, which is the University of Texas Arlington, and they're getting a speedy transition threat, like someone that can make bounce passes in good plays in the half court as well as in the transition. One of his biggest draws is the fact that he is so fast with the ball, and not only that, he has a solid jumper, whether that's from catch and shoot or pull up. When you put shooting with speed, you know you got a killer on your hands. UTA has also put together really solid recruiting classes over the past couple years. So what they can do in their conference and just what they're building over there could be really special by the time Ramirez is about a junior or a senior. Zane Hickey is another guy who performed well for 3D Empire. And when we're being honest, Zane Hickey is one of those guys that I feel is going super underrated as a basketball player. He's one of the better athletes we have in the state. And I mean that as a track guy and a basketball player. He's one of those dudes who can jump over 6'6" as a high jumper. And on the basketball court, we're looking at an effortless slasher, diver, whatever you want to call it. He can do it. Short corner guy, and I get that he's only 6'7" and he's skinny, but when we're talking about someone who can finish above the rim, just move around and be versatile and quick on the court, Hickey is one of those guys. On top of that, Hickey's clearly been working on this jumper, and if he can add that three-point consistency at Flower Mount Marcus during his senior year, I'm telling you guys, this is someone who could be a sleeper and very useful at the D2 or low major ranks. And the names for 3D Empire just don't stop coming. Our next guy up is going to be Jacob Zane, who is a catch and shoot three-point specialist. And on top of that, we're looking at a guy who throws darts. I mean, laser passes around the entire court. And he can find guys who are 2-3 passes away. And he really has the arm to get the ball there to them in a flash. And last on this team is going to be our 2023 prospect to watch, Gehrig Norman. I've been championing him for about a year and a half now. And seeing how he's developed and how he played on this 2022 roster with the final tournament of the year, the 6'5" guy has it. He has a solid shooting package. He's athletic. He's long, and he's going to give effort on every single play. Clearly, he still has some growing to do, but if there's one thing 3D Empire does, is grow you as a player. It's a consistent program that just makes you better and better year over year. So seeing him play up in this last tournament, I know their coaching staff is going to be able to iron anything out and make him a guy to watch when they come back next year. Our next team up is going to be Vegas Elite, and they had a trio of guards that intrigued. Sebastian and Mack hit a corner three, and that just highlights how good of a shooter he is. Another guy out of Durango High School that needs some attention going into his senior year. Our next guy up is going to be Simon Wheeler, who has the quickness and passing ability to be a real force at the next level. Someone that can really come in, change the pace of your game, get guys open, and do a little bit of scoring for himself as well. The third musketeer is going to be Keyon Menifield Jr., and that's just a guy who can fill up the cup. His jump shot's nice, he hits step back threes, and he's just an overall crafty scorer. As I mentioned before, recently moved down to Florida, and from my time here, one of my favorite teams to watch this entire summer has been Southeast Elite. They have guys at every single position, and I mean not just one. I'm talking about guys, at least 2 to 3 at every single position, who stand out and are ready to make an impact at the next level. And I'm not talking about D2. I think every last one of these guys who makes an impact and plays on this floor can be D1 prospects. Our first guy up is the always underrated Ven-Allen Lubin. He has been a consistent out of bounds alley-oop threat every single game I saw him play in. And at 6'7", he's a burly forward who can play the 3 over the 4 and is growing in his complete skill set. I saw him hit several 3-pointers, which is something that I didn't see much from him during the Adidas basketball circuit. But he's hitting that shot now and still has all the athletic bully ball material that you want to see. There was one play in particular where he grabs the offensive rebound, bumps the guy, and just finishes through him. He's a consistent guy who's athletic and going to give you that motor, and his play produces on both sides of the court. When we're talking about downhill scorers, Lubin is a freight train once he gets moving. If you stand in his way, understand that you're either ready to take a charge or ready to be on a poster. That simple. After a really solid spring and summer, Earnest Udeh Jr. has earned 5-star status, and it is obvious why when he's on the court. He's a dude that can step out and make mid-range jump shots, and most importantly, when we talking about someone who can protect the paint and keep you in games as a rebounder, he is that guy for you. He really impressed by how often he was grabbing offensive rebounds and either going for a kick out or going straight back up with it. His ability to protect the rim was also really impressive, whether that was him just walling up on his man or being a guy that can step over as a help defender and swat everything away from the rim. He's really consistent in all those areas. And when we're talking about a guy who already is showing touch from the mid-range and also has a 6'10" wide frame, it's a guy who is just touching the surface of what he can be. And we're going to see a lot more of him at the next level. Our next guy up is going to be Javon Bennet, a guy that I saw during Fab C camp in June, and he has not stopped impressing me and probably will not. He's a super athletic 5'9" point guard with one of the best jump shots I've seen in the class. He's a consistent shooter with deep range. Bennett's also a really feisty guy to have on the defensive end. He has quick hands, and plus his athleticism allows him to really move around on the court. He has several strip steals, and just being in those passing lanes and getting down the transition are a thing of beauty for this guy. Another guy that plays the same exact position as Javon Bennet is Denzel at Aberdeen, and he was a consistent play starter. Whether that was someone who finished the play with a pass, or if he was the person who set everything in motion with the hockey assist, he was there. He made the play. He saw everything forming. He was a consistent guy who could hit things in transition. Overall, Denzel at Aberdeen is a really impressive guy to have on your team who glues everything together and is going to make plays come true for you. Mykol Sanchez is our next guy up, and he's someone that I saw during the Adidas circuit who really asserted himself, and there was no difference here at the Fantastic 40. He had a really solid game against 3D Empire where he did just about everything you needed him to do. He's a really solid passer. He knows how to move the ball, and at 6'6", his athleticism shows heavily. He sees the floor well. He can make plays above the rim, and as a transition finisher, he's one of the more exciting guys that I saw during this event. He doesn't shy away from contact. He even made one over one of the better defensive prospects we had in Vegas, Anthony Black. He just has a really solid showing. Knows he has range on the jumper, but he really wanted to get in the paint in this one against 3D Empire, and it shows and impressed. All right, and thank you guys for tuning in to another episode of the Prospects Corner. This has been part 1 of the Fantastic 40. There's still more film and more notes to go through. This is just the first 6 or so teams that really stood out to me. And again, since you came this far, go ahead and like this video so you can see us grow. Go ahead and subscribe so you can get part 2 and more of our information. And again, thank you for clicking this video, and more content coming to you. Thank you.